Alright, everybody out there in YouTube land. That last video I did about making 300 hammer ammo ended up being absolutely insanely long. So we're going to chop it up into small pieces. So we're going to hit on right now, as you saw from the title, and hashtags and all that other stuff, hopefully. This is going to be about making your casings out of 223 brass. That's the parent cartridge of the 300 hammer. I got my camera a little bit closer this time, trying to show a little bit more detail. We got our 223 brass here, or 556, whichever it is that we lubed up with our Lee resizing lubricant. I just put so many casings in a old powder can that I cleaned out. Put some of that lube in there, just a little bit. Put them in there, shake it around. You can see that in the other video. I don't think I need to show that again, but get them all lubed up. These have been, it's dried on there. You can use this wet or dry. So we'll put it in our press here and we'll do our resizing. This is one way to do this. Okay. Now what you can do, it turns out if you have the right tubing cutter, alright, this is a model, it's a model 104 rigid tubing cutter. If you put that shoulder up against the roller when you put it in there, okay, let me open this up so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. If you put that, let me wake this screen. If you put that shoulder right up against those rollers, the spacing of where that cutter is just a little bit long. You just got to do a little bit of trimming. So if you're using like a Lee zip trim, or you're using the little arbor that fits into a drill to do it, with your adapter to spin it, either way it'll work very nicely. I really like the zip trim. Usually works out really well for me. So if I put this in here so that those rollers are right up against the shoulder where the neck is nice and straight. Now this does take an extra step, sorta. Tighten it a little bit. I don't know, if you're not familiar with a tubing cutter, you want to try and make sure it stays straight. But you don't want to turn too fast or it'll just crush it. You just turn a little bit tighter and spin it and let that cutter wheel work a groove into that casing. And the zip trim's really nice for getting lots of revolutions instead of turning it by hand. And then there you go, the little piece came off. Now what it does is it rolls that edge in. We can't get our arbor in, so it still has lube on. So we're going to put it right back in the press quick and go back up in our decapping resizing die. And now we're all straightened up there. Our neck is all reestablished right where it should be. We should be able to come in here. Yep. I don't know if they redesigned this, the shell holder, that it does not fit as well on the zip trim, but I never had near the problems. And you just go down there till it stops cutting with Lee's arbor system there. Okay. Now while it's still in the zip trim, we're gonna give it a turn or two here to, if it would stay in there. I gotta quit being so heavy-handed. Get our lube off. Take our little Scotch-Brite pad. Give her a couple of nice little quick turns. Shine that case up really nicely. Take our chamfering tool, a little rocket ship, a lot of people call it, because that's what it looks like. Now I'm going to chamfer the inside of these casings a little bit harder than I normally would. Just because I plan on using some cast bullets. But now there we got our casing. I probably put my head right in the way of the camera there. And we get our casing in the calipers properly, and we are right at, hopefully it's focusing, right at our trim length. Well, we're about half a thousandth over of 1.595. So that there works out really nicely. Now you got to be careful. I've also used this method to trim got a little bit of chafer in there, trying to help a lead bullet start a little nicer. You don't want to do too much. You gotta clean that primer pocket out. Now this isn't a crimped round, so I don't gotta worry about trimming that a crimp off, but I'll show you how I do that when I run into one here. But I can take my brush, do my primer pocket up there a little bit, get all the fouling out of there from the primer going off. And if we want to clean the bottom of that up, we just rub it on our Scotch-Brite pad there, and we got a nice dry, clean casing. Now they aren't tumbled or anything. I don't have one. I've been reloading for a pretty long time, and some rounds for 243s that I, really tuned into the rifle. I used to use that to hunt a lot of groundhogs. Really got them accurized up pretty nicely at moderate ranges. By no means do I claim that I'm some long distance shooter of 1,000 yards or anything like that. But let's show another one here. Alright, that one there's a crimp casing. We'll get to show that. Okay, I don't know if you could see that there. But that there's a crimped in primer. We'll put that one in there. Sometimes it's nicer. Yeah, that one there it folded it down. That one goes in the junk bucket for scrap. So we'll try another one here. I forgot that I normally put a little lube inside the case mouth. I don't know where my small Q-tip went to do that with. Let's let the air out of our tube and massage that around a little bit. It's like ketchup. It'll separate out in there. Give it a good stirring around. Get some of it up here. We'll just use the stem of our Q-tip here. Get a little bit of the bullet lube. And we'll put some around. Very little. We don't want it to be wet in there. Even though we're going to cut a lot of that off, really. Okay, now with that lube inside the case mouth there, we got a little split right there, but we're going to trim that off. But with that lube in the case mouth, that made all the difference in the world in that big resizing. I think that's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind, even if you're doing if you're doing 300 hammers. It's a very similar operation. Just your trim length is different. Okay, so there we are. So we'll go back over here to our zip trim. Make that way tighter than I ever had to before. We'll put our tubing cutter on here. If you're a mechanic, you know what you do with this. You cut brake lines. Put a little tension on there. Try and keep this straight. And make sure it tracks up against that shoulder, but don't put too much pressure on it or it'll walk up on that shoulder. A little more tension. Give it some revolutions there. A little more. And off our piece of brass comes that we don't need. Now we got to go back over to the resizer just to get rid of that little bit of a taper that the tubing cutter put on there. This is an alternative to the using the Harbor Freight homemade little chop saw with a little jig, which is a really nice idea. Don't get me wrong, that's really nice what they do, but you know, this is another way you can do it, you know, with maybe some things you already have on hand, especially if you do any of your own mechanical work. You almost certainly probably have a tubing cutter around. We got her trimmed to length there and loosen the arbor again. I know it's making all you guys think to yourself, well, I ain't getting a Lee zip trim. This guy has nothing but trouble with it, but part of it is because I get too, my big old bear paws, I get too aggressive with it. If you're, don't try and be Goliath and squeeze it so crazy hard. Like I said, I normally would not chamfer, chamfer I guess is the right way to say that. I normally wouldn't do quite so much in there, but I don't have a way to flare that case mouth a little bit to help the cast bullet start. So we'll yeah, that one there wasn't a crimp. The crimp one we folded down because we forgot to lube the inside of the case mount. Let's see if we grab. That one's not crimped. That one's not crimped. Those are the ones I want, but not for showing you what's going on here with the crimp. Oh well, if we get one, we get one. The other video shows how I deal with crimps. I can describe it to you as we go here. Oh, see now there, I forgot to put a little lube in there. There we got a split. You can see that. But down here it's okay. And we're cutting that much off. Almost guaranteed we'll take that whole split off. We'll see. We'll give it a try here. It's worth it. Gives you one more piece of brass that you can turn into our hammer round. Now you can buy brass and I do have some brass that I bought from Wilson Combat when I ordered my barrel and muzzle brake and gas tube. Straighten her back up here. Let's give it a trim here, get it to proper length, and see if, usually when you trim it, if that crack is down there, you'll feel it snagging on it. It won't be a nice smooth cut. Take our lube off of there. When it's dry, it comes off really nice. Let's shine it up here. Just so it don't look like some round we found laying in the dirt. Even though they were laying in the dirt, these are, well, I'm going to imagine once fired. Could be not once fired. But there we go. Clean our primer pocket out. And there's another 300 hammer. Ready to go to the next stage. Doesn't take too awful long. I don't know if this is the last one I did or not, but just to check. We're still right on the money, which that won't change because this is your final trimming. And that's going to go in that casing. And that pin comes out and touches on that hard face of the zip trim, or if you're using one of these. So you can't go too far. Now it's only for one cartridge. And I said in the other video, I had to make this arbor. I took a 308 arbor, I had 2 of them, and I used a lathe and turned it down from, I know this is going to make the video long again. Yeah, there's our 308 arbor. So that's what it was, and that's what I turned it down to. I don't have my angle the same as that, but you just need it to taper into that case to help you center up. And then the pin, I turned it down, and I had the pin sticking out there real long. I was getting ready to trim it to length, and it broke off. So then I just drilled a hole right in the center with the lathe, the right size, so I could take the pin and tap it in there. If it tries to move on me, it hasn't yet, I keep checking it. If it tries to move on me, I'll glue it in there and let it set up good so it can't move. Because if that moves, that would allow your length to change. The way Lee makes them, it's solid all one piece. It's not going to move on you. So anyhow, let's try and get in our little rhythm here of not forgetting to lube that inside of that case mouth. And let's keep going here and see how this oh, and there the primer didn't want to fall out, didn't want to come out of the shell holder. That one's resized very beautifully. No cracks in that neck. That neck must not be as work hardened, or it's still annealed properly. Make that pretty tight. Open up our cutter again, drop it in there to the shoulder with a little bit of pressure and tighten it up just to make sure it ain't climbing up on that shoulder. Give her a couple turns, a little more pressure, couple turns. And you'll feel when it's turning easier. And that's when you just give it a little more pressure. Very little. Kind of like you're adjusting your powder measure. Just a little bit at a time. And give it plenty of spins, and it'll, even though you made a revolution, if you get a little more time, it'll get the rest of the way down there. And then you won't roll that edge in quite as far. Run her up in there, get rid of that little roll that cutter put in there. Put it back in here. Good and snug. We're going to get rid of that lube before we do anything else, because we're done going in the dye. And just come in there nice and gentle so your cutter starts cutting. And it only takes a little bit off. That there tubing cutter couldn't be any more perfect for this case. And like I said before, I used the same trick making 30 Herricks for the Thompson Contender. Clean our primer pocket out. And there we, almost dropped it. There we got another, the camera's shaking around, you'll all be seasick. There we got another 300 hammer. I mean, if you want to make them in production, you would probably want to do it a different way. And you could go through here and do the one step. Oh, see there, I forgot my case lube. Primer didn't want to fall out of there either. And there my powder measure's warmed up. Maybe that'll help. If I wipe the bottom of that case off, maybe there's some, with rolling around in that can, there might be some case lube on the bottom there. And maybe that's why it wants to slide around in there. The adapter can't keep a hold of it. Now what I would suggest is if you get a nice brand new one of these, or replace that wheel. You can get replacement wheels if you have a used one. From cutting steel brake lines, if you had a nice brand new one that was super sharp, it might cut that even better without rolling that over. I know I had a different cutter in the past. Different tubing cutter in the past that Had a much finer, sharper cutter on it. I forgot to clean it. In our primer pocket. You can see there, maybe. I don't know if that's focusing good enough or not. But you can see what brass I'm using there on some of these. There's one very clearly. 223 Remington. Some of that's 223 Remington, says right on there. Now, if that's a problem, that it says, you know, 223, instead of 300 hammer for you, well, then you're going to have to buy brass. But, I mean, let's be pretty honest here. There's our 223 case. There's our 300 hammer case, 30 caliber. There's a pretty obvious difference there. If you can't tell the difference in them rounds, I don't think I have a 223 out here. But if you can't tell that ain't a 223, maybe you ought to rethink this pastime or hobby. See there, I forgot to put, and when you first start to go in there, you can tell that you forgot to lube that case mouth. And after you lube it, it just goes right down, expands that out. Oh, look at that one. That one there. Now we lubed the inside of that case mouth, but that brass just couldn't stretch. So it split it. And it split it way farther. We can't do nothing with that. Now maybe a blackout, you could save it. I don't know. I doubt it. That one there is really screwed up. That one will go to the scrap yard. Put a little lube in there. We'll see if we make out better with this one. That one came out very nicely. No splits or cracks at all. Wipe that base off. Try and keep it in place on the zip trim. Well, here, let's put it in the drill, see how this goes. I've never done this. I always use the zip trim. So this could be an utter disaster. Well, let's see. Let's try it for the guys that do it this way. A very good friend of mine, I believe this is the way he uses the Lee zip trim arbors. Turn it just a little bit. And see, if we just keep going there, it almost cut it through. And there we got it off. It's there in my hand. Fell down there. I still think we have it rolled in a little too far. Yeah, I tried to push it in there. If I had the taper that the factory puts on there, it probably would have did it for us, but we'll just go up in our die, get rid of that, and it'll go in there like it should. I don't know if you can see this. I have the camera set up to watch the bench. Try and give you guys a good view of what I'm doing. And doing this in my hand, I don't know if I'm out where I should be or not. I don't want to fill my drawer up with shavings, but well, that went very nice. Like I said, I never did that before. Never did it that way. That's nice though, I will say. The guys that are using the arbor that comes with the, I usually use this drill to run my lineman cutter that I can set up for custom lengths, especially for the wildcat stuff I do, that they don't make arbors for, but I made a adapter arbor for that cutter. One thing is, this is almost that easy. You could certainly go a little too far. I don't know, you guys will have to look at the time stamp on there and see if this was faster or that was faster. But don't count the times when it jumped out of there on me, but it didn't jump out of there as often. Maybe in my hand I can get a hold of that a little better to make it tight than I can over there like this. I might have to maybe do that a little more often. I like this though. But when you're doing a lot of them, it might be better. There we go. Another piece of hammer brass waiting for a bullet. Keep powering through these here. I don't want this video to be, I don't even know how long we are right now. No. If nothing else, if you're watching my videos, you're going to learn how to forget stuff to the last second and then have to back up a little in your process. I certainly haven't gotten into a rhythm there. Now, Lee states that with this resizing lubricant, if you let it dry, you won't have dented casings because you won't have the hydraulic basic force of having the liquid in there building up in one spot or another when it's not dry. So while we're going through here, you see we've did the same thing to all the Afghanistan veterans that we did to the Vietnam veterans. It's a shame that we did that way. All those men and women and everything they went through. Serving their country. That one there, we didn't quite get a complete cut around there. The cutter must have been a little farther down than normal, but we'll measure it. I think it'll be okay. Clean it off here. There, I tore it right out of there. See, I get a hold of it and I squeeze too hard. I pull it right out of that adapter. Doesn't matter if it's in the zip trim. I did it again. That one there, I didn't feel like I was squeezing so hard. I must not have had it tight. I think it turns faster on the zip trim than it does in this little screwdriver type drill. I mean, this ain't a regular high-speed drill for drilling holes. It's just for running a screwdriver bit. And that's shined up really nice. We'll clean our primer pocket out and we'll check our length. But we did cut. That case mouth just isn't probably quite as square. Yeah, we're a little under there. That one there might not be quite as precise or accurate with the other one, but it'll still function through. Alright, YouTube, well, like I said, I'm going to keep this video shorter. So it doesn't run so long. That way you guys can maybe get the information you want to get out of the video quickly. Without having to watch that big long, crazy long I like to keep that unplugged. We get electrical storms. Now obviously if I wasn't talking and was concentrating on what I was doing, we certainly would have made probably twice as many rounds in the time we did there. And we'll do another video of loading them, and then we'll do another video of probably not shooting them, but we'll do another video where we have already shot the rounds, how they function with the cast lead bullets, and how they group. And then I have some, I don't know if you guys can see them shells anymore or not, but I got some 30 caliber 150 grain full metal jackets from Hornady boat tail bullets, and we'll group them. I'll let you know what powder charge and everything we're at, and we'll see how it groups. And then when we do that, I'll talk about the barrel length of my rifle, the rate of twist that I got, was the only one that was available when I ordered it. The profile of the barrel, and go through the rest of the build on my rifle so you know what I'm shooting it out of, if it's comparable to the rifle you built, or yours is out of better components, or whichever. So you get an idea of the baseline of where I'm coming from. Alright, see you guys later.